Hello, and welcome to the first YouTube version of I May Be Young, but for those of you who don't know, I'm your host, Adisyn Flanner, and I'm 14, and I sit here and I talk about things in life that you wouldn't expect a minor to have opinions on, but we do have opinions on. And I like to speak my mind about things, and so people know what I'm talking about. I am testing out a new mic today, so if the audio sounds different, that's why. I'm still learning how to use it, so if it's like bad, don't come for me. I haven't posted on my podcast in a while. I got really busy with school and stuff. You know those AP classes that after semester bounce back. Like, you know what? This next semester, I'm gonna grind. I'm gonna get perfect grades. That's what's gonna happen next semester. Um, it's not happening. Well, don't get me wrong. Good grades. I have good grades, but they're not hundreds. But I have been grinding a little bit harder than usual. So that's why I haven't posted in a while because I've been really busy. Sorry if I keep looking that way because my computer is that way. Also, if I in this episode describe visual things, it's because I am recording this podcast visually and audibly. So if I describe visual things for the people who are listening audibly, don't get confused. It's just because I'm looking at a camera while I'm doing this. And for the people visually, if I'm describing things audibly, don't get confused. I don't know. Anyway, today's topic is going to be about should 16-year-olds be allowed to vote or should the voting age be lowered in general and what I think about that. I did a little bit of research in the topic, so I know a little bit about what I'm talking about, but who really knows what they're talking about all the time? I don't. Before I start, I'll give you a little recap of my day. Today I went and I got my hair done. For the people watching on YouTube, you can see it. I think it's pretty nice, and I got some new earrings. And I went to Sephora and got some new makeup, so that's really cool. And so far the school year has been going pretty well, and I'm excited to see what else it has in store for me. It's kind of sad that freshman year's almost over, but then comes sophomore year, and then comes driving, which I'm kind of scared about. Anyway, let's move on. Speaking of sophomores and driving, 16-year-olds voting. So recently, there's been a lot of controversy, I guess you could say, on whether or not 16-year-olds should be able to have the right to vote. Sorry, the chair I'm sitting in is it makes that noise a lot. But there's been some controversy into whether or not 16-year-olds should have the right to vote. And, people have been protesting because basically the reason they're saying this is because some 16-year-olds are affected by things that are voted on. Like, in my eyes, they said, and the sources I was looking at, they said it was mostly because of taxation on 16-year-olds. By that, I think they mean stuff like income tax. Like, a lot of 16-year-olds have jobs, part-time jobs, and you know that when you get your paycheck, that's actually not your whole paycheck. It's been taxed, and then the income tax has been sent to the government. And so 16-year-olds and other teenagers who have jobs are like, well, if you're going to tax me, I should be able to vote. I mean, it does kind of make sense because I remember when I was in US history, we were learning about the colonies and all the colony people and how they were talking in Britain. They were like, no taxation without representation. They wanted the right to vote if Britain was going to have the right to put tariffs on their tea and paper and other things. And I think the same thing applies here. If I'm going to work in America and I'm going to be taxed in America, then I should have the right to vote for the people who are going to be able to affect the tax from my paycheck. Now, other than that, I don't think 16-year-olds really have to pay any other taxes. I mean, if they were to buy a car in their name, they'd have to pay tax on that. I'm not really an expert on taxes. I hate math. Also, I'm a minor, so I don't have to pay them. My mother pays taxes. I know when I wrote my book, there were taxes on that my mom had to pay. But then again, my mom paid it. But again, 16-year-olds who are paying the taxes are fighting for the right to vote because they're being affected by it. Now, essentially what's been happening is people have been talking about maybe we should lower the voting age from 18 to 16. In some places, like I know California, I believe in Berkeley, they let the students vote in some local elections and at school board meetings. School board meetings, I totally agree with, because the things at school board meetings are almost always going to affect them. Having the right to vote there, I think, is very important. And I think it's something that everywhere should do. If you're going to vote on something at a school board, if you're not going to invite the students to sit and watch or kind of give their opinion on something, that you should at least let them vote on it, because it's more than likely going to affect them. When it comes to like general elections and stuff, like your mayor, I don't really know much about what my mayor does. I'm gonna be honest. I don't even know who the current mayor of my city is. I really should find that information out because I think it's important. But regarding general elections, like local elections, I don't think there's too much that your local election is going to do against you that's going to affect you. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. Things like president and stuff, maybe there's very like I know people who are around my age, they're very like active politically. Like they know what's going on, they know who's in office, they know who's running this year, like they know all this stuff. I don't keep up with politics like that. Like I know who's president, and when the election time comes around, I know who's running. I know what let me rephrase. I know the Democratic candidate and the Republican candidate, and that's pretty much all I know about the election until somebody wins. But there are other people who are super into it, always watching the polls constantly. So those people who are really into it might actually be intelligent voters. Yeah, so there's people who are very into it and actually have the knowledge to be able to vote accurately, and I think those people should be able to. Adults' arguments against lowering the voting age is that 16-year-olds aren't competent enough to vote, which I think is definitely not true. 16-year-olds are old enough to do a lot of things, including driving. Like, I don't know if y'all know, but other countries look at the USA and they're like, y'all can't drink, but you can drive. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, if you're going to be able to drive, you should be able to drink. And if you're going to be able to drink, you should be able to drive. That is what other countries think about us. And so, yeah, I think 16-year-olds are definitely competent enough to vote before the voting age. I think 16-year-olds are definitely competent enough to vote. I mean, if they're allowed to drive, they should be able to vote. Driving is a complicated process. There's a lot of rules and regulations and things that go into it. And I think that if 16-year-olds are competent enough to understand those rules and regulations, they're competent enough to make accurate decisions on who they think should represent them in their country, nationally, locally, stately. What is the adverb for the state? That's something I will have to look up after I'm done with this. But yeah, essentially, I think that if you're competent enough to drive, you're competent enough to vote. And so, yeah, that's one of the arguments against lowering the voting age. I also think that while there are teenagers who are very like in the know politically, there are also teenagers who would, I feel like, take advantage of the fact that they're able to vote and treat it like something that doesn't have much magnitude. They just be all willy nilly. Oh, I'm just gonna vote. Oh, it'd be so funny. I feel like there will definitely be 16-year-olds who will make a joke out of it, and that is my only apprehension because, like, I feel like I know kids now who, if they were given the right to vote, wouldn't make a good voting decision. My idea with it, maybe what we do is you have to get parental permission to vote. I'm pretty sure parents are a good judge of character on their children and whether or not they should be able to vote. And so I feel like maybe if one day I wanted to vote for something, maybe if I get permission from my mom to vote first and then I go. So you make sure that the people who are voting that are below 18 are actually worthy of the right to vote now. I mean, I guess you might as well allow them to vote no matter what now, because when they turn 18, they could still make the same poor decisions while voting by not taking it seriously as they could when they're 16. But that's maturity and growing and all of that. And so I'm trying to think of what it would be like if I was allowed to vote before turning 18. Unfortunately, because my birthday is in August, when the election comes around, like when like there's an election, right? Like the year I'm going to be turning 18, but I won't be able to vote in that election because I will still be 17. So that's kind of like bad. Like when everybody else is turning, right now everybody is turning 15. I turned 14 10 days after school started. So like when the election happens, I won't be turning 18 until the next year, I believe. If the math isn't mathing, don't blame me. As I said earlier, I hate math. But I won't be able to vote that year, so I'm going to have to wait like 4 more years until the next. Don't get me wrong, I can vote in local elections, but like that's fine, but I want to vote in like the big dog ones. Like everybody looks forward to the president one. That's the big one. That's the one you want to vote in. And I'm just going to have to wait another 4 years to do so. So voting at 16 maybe could be beneficial for me. Although I do feel like it's a lot of pressure. You're in high school and you're just going to have to do some research, figure out who you want to vote for. But yeah, I want to vote in the big with the big leagues, with the big boys, as SZA would say, and I want to vote with them, and I won't be able to, or I will be able to 4 years later than everybody else that I currently know right now. But it's fine. It's fine. I'm okay. Not. I'm trying to think now. If we did it so far, what legislators have been doing is they've been doing it like state wise. They can make the decisions on it. I don't. Nobody's been allowed yet under the age of 18 to vote like presidentially, but in local elections and school board elections it has been allowed, and people are like pushing further for it. But right now I believe it's up to the decision of the state who can vote at what age, meaning that the state can only jurisdict the age for state elections at the highest. So if 16-year-olds did gain the right to vote, it would have to be like a whole thing. Would it have to be added to the Constitution? Is that something that's in the Constitution? The voting age? I haven't read it. I have not read the Constitution. So, I don't know. Wait, let me think about this. I think it would have to be like a bill drafted up by POTUS himself. POTUS. That is a very hard P right there. POTUS. I think it has to be drafted by POTUS. I just said it 3 times and then I decided to say it wrong. Wow. That's me on a daily basis for you, ladies and gentlemen. POTUS himself would have to draft up a bill to allow 16-year-olds the right to vote in presidential elections in the US. I think that's how it would work. Don't quote me on that. Pretty sure that's how it would work. I took US history, so I do know a couple of things. With that, if like I feel like, although I feel like people are going to take it way too seriously, that, oh, 16-year-olds are allowed to vote. So that makes them, isn't that like emancipation for them from their parents since they can vote in their own country now? I feel like, I don't know. I feel like some crazy parents are going to use that against their kids. But like, you can vote, therefore you can get out of my house. You're old enough to vote, you can leave. And then some people are going to be like, well, if I'm old enough to vote now, I'm old enough to drink, like the Europeans. And so, no offense to Europeans, their drinking ages are very low though. I'm not sure what like the health effects are of that. Although they can't drive till later, which I think is actually good. Like people not being able to drive until they're like 21. I think that's a valid rule. Granted, I still want to get my license as soon as I can, but the only places I really need to drive right now is Raising Cane's, to school, and back home. That's all the places I need to go. But I feel like some people are gonna take it too far and be like, oh, you can vote? Doesn't that make you an adult? No. I'm 16, not an adult. I can do some adult things, but I'm not an adult. And in turn, 16-year-olds don't need to get big headed and be like, well, I'm an adult now. I don't have to listen to you. I can vote. Joe Biden will fix it. That's not how it works. 16-year-olds everywhere. This will be me in 2 years. I'm going to look back on this and realize that I dissed myself. I'm going to be really mad about it and ask why would I say these things. But those are my thoughts on 16-year-olds having the right to vote. I'd like to know what y'all think about it in like the comments of this video and this recording. For the people just listening, I am gonna get some headphones so I can hear what I sound like on these, because I got this new mic and I can't hear what I sound like until I listen to it back. So I want to get some headphones. But like good Bluetooth headphones are really expensive. But that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, not sure what I'm gonna record. Haven't even picked out a topic yet, but I will post this. Really hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope I can make more YouTube videos in the future, and I hope I can keep making podcast episodes. So that's all for today. Bye.